A crucial decision by the government very early on was that they would leave it for Parliament to decide the detail of the voice if there was a successful yes vote at the referendum. That means a lot of the workings of the voice group are to be determined by federal law, by Parliament. Not just by the government, but by everybody who's got a vote in the House of Representatives and in the Senate.
The detail in the voice proposal has been probably one of the most controversial elements over the 15 or 16 months that we've been debating this. There is detail available in the Langton review, which was released in 2021 and handed to the Morrison government, commissioned by and handed to the Morrison government. The question is, will that be the form that the voice to Parliament takes? And we simply don't know. At various times, the Prime Minister and senior ministers have referred to it as a model that could be used, but it's not clear that whether some or all, or in fact even none of the detail in Langton will be used. The most recent federal budget allocated around $364 million to holding the referendum, but that's not to actually run the voice.
There's no clear picture on the cost for the voice over the long term, and it's good to be wary of any claims made about how much it will cost. And that's because there's nothing quite like it in the federal structure at the moment on Indigenous policy. There's an existing agency that reports to the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. That's the National Indigenous Australians Agency. It's got a budget of about $2.6 billion, but that includes direct grants that it makes to a lot of programs, about 1,000 programs at least, around Australia. The Indigenous voice does not have that kind of responsibility, so it doesn't have that kind of cost structure.
The bigger question would be, what would the cost be of what the voice recommends that the Parliament of Australia, the federal government of Australia, advances in terms of Indigenous affairs policy. Now, the argument is that the voice would be able to better inform government and actually make savings by saying this program's not working, that one is, let's put money there. That's an argument the federal government has advanced. Obviously, they're in favour of the voice. The opposition has warned that it would add, potentially tens of millions or more to the federal budget and costs. Because it would be another unelected bureaucracy. The Langton review, which was handed to the Morrison government in 2021, recommended 24 people would comprise the voice, and it would be a mix of people being elected by communities on a state-by-state and regional basis, along with some members being selected in line with traditional forms of choosing community leaders.
The idea behind the 24 people is that they would represent each state, different communities, and also Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, not just in the Torres Strait, but also on the mainland. So putting that together, you lead to an election process of some kind that would ultimately be decided by Parliament if the referendum results in a yes vote. It's up for Parliament to decide what structure that election will use in order to select the voice. The differences of opinion among Indigenous Australians about the voice really reflect a common dynamic in politics. Some think it goes too far, some think it doesn't go far enough, and many are in between. There are those like Lydia Thorpe who think that the voice is too weak and therefore should be opposed, and there are those like Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price, the Country Liberal Party senator from the Northern Territory, who says that it divides Australia by race and should be opposed.
The progressive no side says that the voice doesn't go far enough. They want to see treaty right now between the Commonwealth and Indigenous Australians, whereas on the conservative side of politics, the argument tends to be that Indigenous Australians already have a voice, that they are able to make representations to government, that this would be a further layer of bureaucracy, those sorts of things. Now, that's very much a contested claim, depending on who you talk to. Any Australian who's on the Australian Electoral Commission's roll can vote in the voice. However, if you haven't already enrolled, it's too late to do so now.
There is voting overseas. If you're an Australian living overseas, you can go to an embassy or consulate and you can cast your ballot there. They're taking votes now at the Australia House in London and in the embassy in Washington, DC. There are even steps put in place for Australians working in Antarctica to cast a ballot. They can do it by phone.